This is Goku Sun DBZ, and welcome back. This time I will be showing my Sega game collection. As say in the future, I will also do a Nintendo video of my Nintendo games, Microsoft one for my Xbox games, and of course probably a two-parter for my Sony. Part 1 will be PS1, PS2, PSP. Part 3 will be obviously PS Vita, PS3, PS4. So with that said, now, even though the first thing is technically not a game, it's a Game Shark for obviously the Sega Saturn. Now, first, show some stuff that I don't have cases for. These are some of my Sega Game Gear games. I don't necessarily have everything out, but this is what I could find easiest. Of course, Dolphin or Echo the Dolphin, which is a platformer, which sadly more people haven't tried. You have fun little puzzle type games like this one, which is actually quite enjoyable classic. World Series, if you're into baseball. Then you have some classics, racing games like this on the Sega Game Gear. I hope you're enjoying my KI music. A putt-putt golf game. I got most of these games like under $1, so. Sonic the Hedgehog 2, but it's not the actual real Sonic 2. Just a heads up. And this is probably arguably the best Sonic game actually on the Game Gear. It's called Sonic the Hedgehog Chaos, or whatever, Sonic Chaos. By far the best playing game. Next we have classics on the Sega Master System like Space Harrier, which is a true classic. If you've never played Space Harrier, check it out. We have a 6-pack here, which has Sonic the Hedgehog, Revenge of Shinobi, Columns, which I showed you, Super Hang-On, Golden Axe, and Streets of Rage. Next up, yep, Phantasy Star 2. Also, Phantasy Star 4, which are easily considered to be by many to be like the Final Fantasy VI of the Phantasy Star series. Underrated fine games such as Eternal Champions. Of course, Sonic the Hedgehog 2, Sonic 2, which many people consider to be the best Sonic game. Next up, we have Afterburner, which is a classic jet fighter game from the Sega Master System era. Yeah, the cases for the most part were pretty basic, to be fair. Not real improvement. It wouldn't be until really Sega Genesis they'd learn how to do cover art really well. Next up we have a port of the original Double Dragons game, which is another really good, underrated beat 'em up. At least nowadays, anyways. This is an RPG actually game, exclusive. It's pretty good, very basic. It plays pretty much like the very first Final Fantasy game. And last on the Sega Master, we have Thunder Black, which is a on-rail shooter with a helicopter instead of a jet, which is interesting to say the least. Still an interesting game nevertheless. Next we go on to some of my Sega Genesis games, like the original Fatal Fury, which is of course which would lead into games like Art of Fighter and more specifically Kino Fighters. Yeah, this is a pretty janky, not so good port of the game, but still. It's good for any fine game collector out there. Also we have, of course, Street Fighter II Championship Edition, which will be the first version introducing as playable the boss characters. Next we have Super Street Fighter 2. Which I do kind of like that more mysterious art design. Next we have the original Mortal Kombat. Mortal Kombat 2. No, I still need to get regular vanilla 3 for it, but Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3. Really good classic 2D fighter. Next up, a few games without cases. Madden 97. The original Panzer Dragoon. On the Dreamcast, Hydro Thunder. Jet Grind Radio. The original Marvel vs. Capcom. Marvel vs. Capcom 2. Soul Calibur. Street Fighter 3 Double Impact, which includes New Generation and Second Impact in it. Street Fighter 3 Third Strike. And last without case, Mortal Kombat Gold, which is considered to be the superior version of Mortal Kombat 4. Next up, some Sega Saturn stuff. First up, X-Men Children of the Atom, which is a really good classic fighting game, of course. And yeah, I only have like 3 Sega Saturn games in these humongous oversized cases. And one of the worst fighting games ever, Street Fighter, the movie, the game. Definitely not a good fighting game by any means, but for collectors. Battle Arena Toshinden Remix, which even includes like cheap anime like clips before fights, which the original version did not have. Still, this is more fun because of how cheesy it is. And just so you know, most of these games are mostly imports. Okay, first up we have Nights into Dreams, which is a good, really good platformer. Highly underrated in my personal opinion. Virtual Fighter Remix, which is about the best, I think it's second best or the #1 best-selling Sega Saturn game. I think it's #2 though. Really good, and has a little bit improved imagery, at least for the time anyways, and improved overall graphics, and even gameplay-wise. This one, for some reason, came in a weird cheapy cardboard thing, and that's Virtual Fighter 2, which is many people consider to be the best of the Virtual Fighter series. Next up, we get started on the imports. Vampire Savior, better known as Darkstalkers 3, but this is actually the full import version, because this even includes a 8 MB pack in it in order to play the game. Or if you have an American unit like me, just get the Rare Replay or Game Shark. But some of these games are getting a little bit pricey now, even for Japanese imports. But this is definitely a game worth getting. The quality is superb, easily one of the best 2D fighters of all time. The sprite designs, the animation is just beautiful on this game. Next up, we have technically Vampire Hunter, so Darkstalkers 2, which actually, of course, takes place before Vampire Savior. Next up, we have a very overlooked and very unique fighting game from Capcom. It's called Cyberbots Full Metal Madness, which you can actually get this in the PSN store, I think, on both, like the Vita and also the PS3. And it's definitely unique. This is actually where the character in Marvel vs. Capcom 1 and 2, Jin, comes from this game, actually. Samurai Shodown 4, another great fighting game. Fighting Vipers, a very unique 3D fighter. Marvel Superheroes, another great Capcom fighting game. X-Men vs. Street Fighter. Marvel Superheroes vs. Street Fighter, which is my favorite one of the older games in the series. Next we have Panzer Dragoon Zwei, or Panzer Dragoon 2, if you will. Next is a Japanese import version of a game I'll probably never be able to afford to collect. This is the Japanese import version of the game Panzer Dragoon Saga. Now, I collected this because this Japanese import ran about like $40 versus what the American version, English dub of the game, runs on average $600+. So now you understand why I'll probably never be able to get that game unless I literally save up on the side for a year or two. And the last of the Sega Saturn games, Biohazard, or known as Resident Evil. This is the full uncensored version of the game, the only fully uncensored version of the original Resident Evil with the live action clips. This is the only one that's not censored at all. You have to get the Japanese import version on the Saturn, and that's the only version there is, completely uncensored. Thanks to American government agencies liking to censor everything. Next, we have a unique little device for the Dreamcast, which allows you to play, you guessed it, Tekken 3 on the Sega Dreamcast. You put in this disc first, then it lets you play the Tekken 3 PlayStation 1 game with actually improved graphics, believe it or not. So it actually runs better on the Dreamcast, which is kind of crazy. I'm trying to separate the imports off from the regular American stuff. We have one which unfortunately I lost the cover to, and that is Sonic Adventures, which in my opinion is maybe the best Sonic game that has ever come out. But that's my own personal opinion. So take that with a grain of salt. Dead or Alive 2, which in my opinion is probably the second best game in the Dead or Alive franchise. For me personally, I felt Dead or Alive 3 is the best in the series. That's me. Next up, we have actually a highly rare game to find, and good luck trying to track this game down. especially if you're looking for an authentic copy, not a reproduction or like knockoff. Good luck trying to find Cannon Spike. Not a great game, but it is certainly a rare game. Definitely, for any of you Sega Dreamcast collectors out there, this is considered to be one of the rarest games to find, especially of Capcom games. Next up, we have Capcom vs. SNK. The first of those two, though that game is kind of clunky compared to CVS 2. Crazy Taxi, which is a really fun game to play, I might add. Not to mention I'm a fan of The Offspring, so that doesn't hurt the fact the whole soundtrack's done by The Offspring. Next we have a very unusual fine game, Psychic Force 2012. Project Justice, which is a sequel to, of course, Rival Schools. It's a very unique and very weird out there fine game. Next up, we have one of probably my crowning jewels in my collection, Skies of Arcadia for the Dreamcast. Good luck finding this game. This is considered to be the Final Fantasy VII of the Dreamcast. One of the best JRPGs of all time. Slave Zero, a very unique shooting game. King of Fighters Evolution, which is definitely different than some of the other King of Fighter games out there. Another pretty good RPG on the Dreamcast, Time Stalkers, which is definitely interesting. Not as good as Skies of Arcadia, but still a very good game and highly undervalued in my opinion. And don't ask me why I have 2 copies of Vigilante The Second Offense, which I think is better than Vigilante 1. And better than most of the Twisted Metal games. Resident Evil Code Veronica. Not Veronica X, just Veronica, the original version. Yeah, this was released for some of the Dreamcast. And of course we have here a really good game called Legacy of Kain Soul Reaver, which is such a good game, seriously. If you've never played Legacy of Kain, do yourself a favor and get the game. If you have a Dreamcast, get this version. It's the best version. The PlayStation version doesn't even come close in overall quality of gameplay to this version. By far runs smoother. But given the console's a lot more powerful, no surprise there. Okay, here's my last American game, which is essential to any Dreamcast collector's collection, and that is Shamu, which is a really good game. And of course, it recently came out with an HD collection of imports, the original Soul Calibur. This is a fun game I love so much I don't mind having more than 1 copy of. We have Virtual Fighter 3, which is very unique and it's interesting. It's actually more than 1 disc in the Japanese import version, which I find unique. We have Street Fighter 03, also known as Street Fighter Alpha 3, since Alpha series goes by 0 in Japan, which is definitely arguably one of the best Street Fighter games in the whole franchise. Easily made the top 5 best games in the whole series. Next we have, now this was only available in Japanese release only on the Sega Dreamcast. And this is, of course, Capcom vs. SNK 2. Yes, this was the only way you could play it on the Dreamcast, was the import version, which is unfortunate. Otherwise, you have to get it on PS2, original Xbox, or GameCube. GameCube version is maybe the most expensive version of the game, though Xbox, I think, is actually just EO. But yeah, this is a very good game. It actually plays really good on the Dreamcast. I kept this little plastic cover on it just to keep it in good condition. And last is one of the only factory seal games in my collection. This is the Japanese import version of Street Fighter 3 Third Strike. And you can tell it's in the original wrapper because it actually still has original stickers on it from Japan. Plus, there's even still like sticky stuff like on the top here, keeping the case shut. And that's good signs to show this is authentic and not fake. And this is arguably probably the rarest game in my Sega collection, hands down, and the most valuable. That's the thing, you have to know your stuff if you are going to collect, like, especially on Sega Saturn and Sega Dreamcast games. Given the prices are going up, and there's a lot of fakes out there, especially with the Dreamcast, you definitely need to know your information when it comes to collecting on stuff like that. With that said, I'll get ready to cut this video. It's getting kind of long, and this is, for the most part, my Sega game collection. Now, this excludes Sega games made for other consoles after they became a software. This is strictly Sega console games. But that's it. I'll see everyone next time. Same YouTube time, same YouTube channel.